So before we move on to setting, let's just talk about the characterization of Henry. So he's presented to us as being very ambitious and pretty ruthless in the way that he carries himself. He gains the crown not through divinity, not by divine right, but through deception. So his use of Machiavellian politics enables him to garner the support that he needs to dispose of the king and claim the throne. So that sets him up as an interesting character to explore. You know, whether he has the right to be the monarch, and so that really feeds that notion of leadership and what makes a good leader in the play. Henry is also very old-fashioned, so when his Machiavellianism doesn't work for him, so he gains that throne, yet the conflict, the civil war continues, he resorts to the chivalric code. He reverts to those old-fashioned ways of using war to solve disputes. So it's all about power, I suppose, and force rather than politics. He's very distant to the people, as I said before, so he doesn't really know them, he doesn't really care for them, and that's problematic. And I think that's the idea that Shakespeare's presenting, and he's certainly very fixed in his thinking. So Hal is not performing his duties as prince in the way that he should. He's at the tavern getting drunk with Falstaff. So what Henry does is he casts him off. He denounces him and says, well, basically you're not the heir to the throne, and puts his younger brother ahead of him, which causes consternation for Hal for sure. So this all sets up the framework for the ideas that are going to be explored in the play. Now, what Shakespeare does quite often is he will use a dual setting. He'll have two main settings within the play, and what he'll do is he'll use them to sort of differentiate the differences between. Generally, it will be between those at the court and the common people. Sometimes it's about the political realm and the more domestic sort of politics that occur, the family relationships, and this play is no different. So the two settings, we have the court, and we don't really see too much of that, particularly at the start of the play, but the idea of court is represented through the language of war and this notion of honour and the chivalric code. That's really encompassing that. So the court, the king's court, and the realm of the monarch is the place of the public. It's very structured, it's very ordered, and it's a place of politics, and it's certainly concerned with power. And so what Shakespeare does is he uses blank verse, that really rigid poetic form to reflect that the structure and the rigidity of the court, the realm of the king. And then the other setting that is in the play is this the East Tavern, and this is the private sphere, and so it's very informal. We see common people going about their developing their relationships, and certainly it is a place of those people who are not in the public realm. They're sort of they're the marginalised, and so Shakespeare uses prose in these scenes, that normal speech, as a means of creating that difference between the two. So we can see it physically on the page. So when we look at these two settings, we can look at the dominant and marginalised narratives. So here the court and Henry's realm is the grand narrative of his rule. It is the dominant narrative, and that crusades, chivalry, warfare, the divine right of kings is the narrative. But what we get in the tavern, from the characters in the tavern, in particular from Falstaff, is that voice of the marginalised. So we get a different perspective, and we see the other side of the story. So Henry's the one that declares war, but we see the actual people that are on the battlefield, and so we get an insight into a different part of the English people, and so that's a really important sort of concept to consider. And what we have is the character of Hal, who is able to transcend both realms. He's able to move quite freely between the two, and this is the way that Shakespeare shows the qualities of a good leader. Someone who is able to, fit quite comfortably into the public realm and be an astute politician. Yet he's someone that knows and understands the people as well, and he can move between the two. And in doing so, what he does is he endears himself to all strata of society, and that's a very important character and characteristic or attribute to have. Hal says in Act 2, Scene 5, "I can drink with any tinker in his own language." And so here there's a nice metaphor that really shows that Hal understands what it means to be a true leader, and that he is able to move between, and what he's doing is deliberate. It's not chance that he is in the tavern. He doesn't agree with his father's politics, and so as a means of setting himself up to be a legitimate successor, he has to endear himself with the public. He has to understand them, know what they think and how they feel, and then he can adapt. And certainly that's really what Shakespeare is presenting, that a modern leader is adaptable, that they're able to react and sort of, rather than have a fixed mindset, they're able to react to the situations. So the last thing I've got on here is this notion of performativity. And so we're really saying that Hal is an actor. He knows what he's doing, but he's playing a part. So he understands that when he leaves the court, he's never going to stay in the tavern for the entirety of the rest of his life. He's using it as a means, as a stepping stone to build him into the leader that he's going to become. And there are lots of references to shimmering and shining. He's going to outshine. It's all about his reputation. It's while his reputation is a bit tarnished at the moment, when he returns to his princely role and his duties, he will shine so much more brightly because of that. And so that really sets up the play and gives us a good insight into what Shakespeare's trying to present through his commentary.